Hey guys, what's going on? FY MyPawn here. I'm here to talk about a few things today, but as you can probably see on screen, the main thing I would like to go over is Wizard of the Coast. What I mean in particular is I'm going to be covering what has, give you a rough overview of what I've seen within the community, at least from my personal experience, and I'm going to be weighing my thoughts. Now, for those of you who do not know, I am very familiar with Wizards of the Coast. I used to be a fan. Well, I am still a fan. The problem is, well, what they recently did. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be giving a rough draft of what ended up happening to, at least from my eyes, what I saw. And basically use this video as a way to get people who don't understand what's going on, give them an idea essentially what's going on, and give them an up-to-date, not paragraph, but basically give them a rough timeline to work with. But I digress. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, and let's sort through this chaotic situation. So, it all started on December 22nd of 2022 when Wizard of the Coast announced that they will be creating a new gaming license, which is the OGL 1.1. It was going to change things for the better, so the company had said, and they wanted everybody to be on board with the changes. However, as a result of a leak, the documents that were in a rough draft have been revealed. Now, with this document, it became very, very clear that they were taking a very economic way of doing things. They wanted to get rid of, well, I wouldn't say get rid of third party, but what they wanted to do is, at least from my eyes, they wanted to make profit. And to them, I guess that makes sense. Like, I'm sure everybody wants to make profit. That's nothing new with a community. However, they did about it in the worst way possible. What they did is, I'm not sure if it's Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro who was working with the document mainly, but regardless of who started who, the point is that the rough draft had very damning evidence that could quite literally ruin their company given the community that Wizard of the Coast had procured. There was a lot, to put it lightly, there was a ton of things that stood out in the license, and it was a horrible mess. But the three main things that I got out of it is that the first is that any content made by the creator who owns a license is given to Wizards of the Coast. So basically, they have the right to take your content and use it for themselves. That's questionable, but it's fine, I guess. The second is that if you make around $750,000, they will demand a 25% cut from all of your profits. But assuming it is from a Kickstarter specifically, it will be brought down to 20% instead. The third and most concerning out of those three things is that, provided they give 30-day notice, they have a full right to pull your content away from you, or essentially excommunicate you from the content at their leisure. So, with the combined lot of these three rules, they not only have the ability to take away your content from you, but they also have the ability to use that content without your with or without your permission. And they also get a 25% cut from whatever you're not making, or whatever they're making from it. So basically, they have full right to just take your content and just tinker with it however they want, use it in their own thing, and not even pay you a dime, at least from what the document is saying. At least that is the assumption I have been given due to many lawyers covering this, many people, discussing it, etc. But yeah, that was a very horrible thing, and it was horrible, put simply. Before I continue further, I should also explain why they did this in the first place. Hasbro is a company who owns Wizards of the Coast, and they needed more cash because a recent project of theirs had failed. And they were in desperate need of money. This sort of license has been made multiple times before by Hasbro, and they have tried this shit with other things like, at least from what I've heard, it has been tried with things that are similar to card games, which technically can work because they're more card game and they're less, third-party material. But when it comes to D&D, third-party is the lifeblood of the community. So, they made a bad move, regardless of the facts. But I digress. They made a mistake, it happens, but let's continue on. Let's see. Regardless of what ended up happening, over the course of a week, because I only discovered about this, January 1st, what was going on, but essentially then went quiet for a week or two, and the fire started to build, putting it lightly. The community got outraged by this for obvious reasons. They were trying to push a change people didn't like. And from what I've been seeing, about 90%, or more or less, are against this sudden change. The wildfire only spread quickly, and it was burning hard, put simply. Now, yeah. How do I describe this? Hold on. But yeah, the community, put simply, was in an uproar. Naturally so, because Wizards of the Coast basically targeted every single person with their content. Now, what I didn't say with that document is who it was being specified against. The problem is, Wizards of the Coast decided to target literally everybody who was using their content. So, this OCL that they were trying to make was covering people that are doing YouTube. It covered people that are doing D&D videos. They're doing things like third-party creators. They're doing everything in their power to target as many people with these changes as possible. So, with how the contract was worded, it pretty much targeted everyone. That is why it backlashed so hard, among other reasons. So people like... But yeah, how do I say? So, to put it into example, there is people like Critical Role, Crit Crab, D20 Dimensions, many major players who played or, made content for D&D or basically had publishing rights from the get-go that were using D&D, as people are trying now to figure out solutions. If this rule... how did I say this? But yeah, no, people are trying to figure out solutions, which they eventually did, to a certain degree on some aspects, but I digress. Now, Wizards of the Coast did respond that they will get to people soon, and they did, but at the time I was writing the script, no response had been given, and 6 days since the last post with no response, to my knowledge. But since that period of silence, more and more chaos has been cropping up in communities of all kind. and the storm only got more chaotic. It's presumed that Wizard of the Coast is hoping we were forgetting the transgressions and let the news outlets draw our attention away from the drama that had caused us to slip into the cracks while nobody was looking. If it weren't for big streamers like Moist Critical or Asmongold, this might have slipped into silence. Just a little bit. But everybody, because of this issue, because it's a very favored game, is obviously going to be noticed and thrown into the limelight. This is a big problem. They fucked up. Naturally, people are going to be pissed. During this time, while the chaos from Wizard of the Coast was going on, major companies were getting tired of waiting as well. And not a few days ago, since writing this script that I have, a ton of companies basically jumped ship and abandoned D&D entirely, refusing any signing that they have. Rather, they did two massive things that will probably change how TTG RPG games are played, possibly for the future of everybody. The first is that Paizo spearheaded a new gaming license called the ORC, or Open Game or Open RPG Creative License. To put it in a simple term, it's a license that is not owned by anybody, cannot be altered by anyone, and is owned by Azora Law, an intellectual law firm representing Paizo and several other game publishers, such as Kobold Press as one example. The second is that all those same companies not only abandoned the OGL 1.1, but they are also making a new independent system dedicated to be non-inclusive for all TTG RPGs to use their stuff. This means things that used to be on D&D are being dumbed down to work with any system in the community. So if you wanted to, say, take the fantasy aspects of Pathfinder, you might be able to work that into a... Well, I do believe you can try to work that into a Warhammer game, for example. That is one of the few examples I'm going to give, but Kobold Press is going to be doing one, Pathfinder is going to be doing one, at least I do believe, but there's going to be a lot of systems out there that are going to try and dumb down a system that is going to make TTG RPGs more inclusive to anybody, basically. This will allow for our own custom games, even, if you really wanted to make like a proper system working around this sort of stuff. I'm not sure what the details are on this, but hasn't been confirmed yet what it's going to be, but I'm looking forward to it. It sounds like a nice change. But I digress. Naturally, this is going to cave Wizards of the Coast further into the ground, and probably Hasbro along with it, because of how bad the backlash currently is. Due to a recent post, however, the next best thing people can do is actually quite simple. Well, I should probably say what this post is. The post that we got was actually from an insider from Wizards of the Coast, and they described what both companies were looking for, or at least both people were looking for. They were just looking to get into your money or your wallets and take your money, or at least that's how they have been describing it. And I quote, to specifically go into detail, they are specifying that we are preventing them from getting their money. So they are very business-minded, and these leaks, while not 100% confirmed, have proved through the constant posts that we've been getting that they are very money-minded, which is not good. But yeah, naturally it's going to cave Wizard of the Coast further underground, and due to that recent post, the next best thing people can do is actually quite simple. All you need to do is cancel your subscription to Wizard of the Coast on D&D Beyond, as that is currently their biggest way of earning money, and how they dictate their decisions. In the document, they put money first, unfortunately, and so naturally, they would look at money as a way to dictate a business doing well or not. So if you really want to go about doing that, that is your choice. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this whole situation, but I'll get to my thoughts after I'm finished, going through everything. Personally, I hate Wizard of the Coast going in this horrible direction. For those who do not know, my first ever TTG RPG was actually D&D 3.5e, and I loved every second of it. It was the first game I picked up, and it got me into the whole roleplay community to begin with. I had a blast, and I was always more of a fantasy guy anyway, so I always looked into things like D&D for my stuff. I have now moved on naturally, but I used to be a big fan of Wizard of the Coast, so I hate seeing them go this direction and using their community like, a wet rag, put simply. But I digress. To see such a relic crashing sucks, but when it comes down to it, sometimes you need to... let me put an analogy here, I guess, is the right word. Sometimes you need to put out a forest fire, you need a controlled burn. I think Wizard of the Coast is just going to have to be a sacrifice for the sake of every other community out there. I don't think it's a nice change. I don't think it's nice to see that it's happening. But at the same time, it's something that has happened, and it will probably continue to happen until this is resolved. Probably for the worse is what I'm predicting, but again, I'll get into my thoughts about that later. But I digress. So here's how I see things going with all the information I've explained. If you think otherwise, feel free to discuss with me in the comments, but this is my personal opinion on how I see things playing out. Wizards of the Coast has so far said nothing, except just today, as I was writing my script on January 13th. Well, let me go over this. They wrote another thing on January 13th, and it only angered everybody even more, naturally, as the document is basically a Q&A that tried to put them in a good light. Rather than discuss the issues of the OGL 1.1 document, they are now making a new document that covers a more focused set of people. And while that is a little better than before, it doesn't change the fact that their trust is already, they worked so hard to obtain, has now crumbled even further. What people wanted was open D&D. What they got was the equivalent of slapping a bull while it was angry. Which, as you can expect, is pretty nasty. For the record, I will say, they did apologize. But they apologized in the wrong way. And it's only furthering a rift between the fanbase and potential customers. Had they apologized properly and revoked changes immediately, alongside working with the community on how to earn more revenue, and gotten more personal input, they probably would have gotten answers. Yes, it would have been hard for them to voice their opinion given that they're part of a company, but the community used to be very passionate with the game. And I guarantee that if they had wanted to just take a small cut or ask for donations, their profits would actually soar, avoiding this disaster entirely. Now, what is the future of Wizard of the Coast and all other TTRG RPGs as a result of these changes? One sec. Many of the communities, I figure, will funnel back into their old favorites, and I assume some will still go back to Wizard of the Coast after this chaos is done and gone. But I do believe Paizo will be taking this as a new spearhead. So they'll be the leading TTG RPG leaders for a while, alongside the companies that support them. The community will now rely on Paizo and Pathfinder to handle the majority of systems, instead of Wizard of the Coast, because from what we saw, they clearly can't be trusted, and they've lost that trust with the community. Now, I will say that Wizard of the Coast could try and sue to get some money back, but from within a court of law, they really do not stand on solid ground due to the fact that the OGL 1.1 once made covers only, well, once made, of course, covers only the style of the book it's written in. Any expressions of data they have, such as dragons, depictions of dragons, or the overall ideas that came from the book cannot be legally tried. So, especially if the pages are somewhat different in style. Put simply, as long as the monster that you're trying to grab doesn't follow the D&D page template of monsters, NPCs, or players, you're basically fine. So basically, what you need to do is you need to work in... You need to simplify things like how do I put it? The best way I can say is, you know how a person would go to a bar and chat with a friend? You need to discuss it in that sort of format. You need to discuss the idea with a guy you're drinking with. Keep it simple, keep it streamlined. Don't go into detail until you actually make the game. But I digress. It's a very big moral gray area, so it ultimately depends on how convincing you can be with your, format, because some things are going to be different than others, so, yeah. But if you aren't on the OGL, I don't think it matters as much, I do believe, but I'm not sure, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not professional about it, so if you want proper answers, you can ask a lawyer, or there's many sets of information out there that you can search and investigate. I'm just trying to give the overview. So, yeah. Okay, let's see. Where was I? Alas, my thoughts are simply this. Wizards of the Coast, if they continue these antics, are only going to do more harm for themselves than good. I will try to avoid posting about this again, personally, because my channel's not dedicated to all this shenanigans and all this chaos. My channel is for streaming. I try and post things that I like doing. I don't like going onto news, discussing these things, but I will do so if I feel like I need to have a voice in the matter. Mind you, I'm a small-time streamer, so probably won't matter much, but I like to get my voice out there, even just a little bit. But yeah, they're going to do more harm for themselves than good. I'll try to avoid posting this sort of stuff again, but I will probably do a follow-up post near the end of the month, assuming this problem either goes out of my prediction range, something drastic happens, or it just hits a brick wall and nothing is resolved. But I digress. I will probably be quiet about it, assuming the problem is resolved, but if it blows up further, I'll be sure to give an update come near February. My final thoughts of this. I think Paizo is moving in the right direction. I think they made a wise decision to move and leave Wizard of the Coast to burn. I know it sucks to lose a fandom that you were part of for many years, but much like the older games like Pac-Man, Tetris, and other such things, a game has to die eventually. It might not be today, but for games to progress and become better versions of themselves, new systems naturally must be made. Systems evolve. And much like Pathfinder, a branch that extended away from D&D, it made its new leaves, new roots, and became independent to grow more saplings. As for my thoughts on Wizard of the Coast, I think they made a bad business decision. They did not understand the community they were dealing with, they went about money-making problem a bad way, and ultimately, they are paying the price for their mistakes. Yes, they could have avoided this problem if their info had not been leaked, but the damage has been done, and their only hope now is to salvage what they can, assuming that is even possible at this point. I don't see Wizards of the Coast coming out of this unscathed, and I wholly expect them to become a minor player in the TTG RPG trend for a long time until the trust is rebuilt. If you intend to help the fight to stop this tyranny from Wizard of the Coast, the best way you can do so is to continue to repost OpenD&D and other hashtags like that. If you are subscribed to D&D Beyond, unsubscribe. What the company wants is money, and the less money they get, the more they will understand that they made a huge mistake. But yeah, the current BBGEG, which is Wizards of the Coast, have rolled natural 1. It's time to roll natural 20 and get high numbers for damage to our target, I guess. But yeah, I think that's it from me. Going off the script, because that was written just yesterday, mind you. I'm not sure how things are going to play out in the near future, but I will say this. Wizards of the Coast did fuck up, and as much as I do like the game, I'm not going to play a game that abuses its creators, put simply. Or at least that's how I saw it with their first post. They're clearly money-minded. They just want it in a horrible way. Had they treated the people with more respect, or did something better to, you know, reserve their popularity, I would have been fine with it, to a degree. I'd still be angry that they're doing this scummy move, but, I mean, contracts and things happen. Like, it's not to be unexpected, right? It's the way they did it that made it horrible, and had that leak not come out, people would probably be in more of a panic had that happened. But I digress. What my final thoughts are after everything here is done is that I do believe that we should continue to keep this hashtag running. I'm not sure if you should subscribe or unsubscribe to D&D Beyond. I personally don't really care because I've never subscribed with them anyways. So I'm already doing part of my part. But my goal was to just give you guys an overview of what was going on, or at least try to. If I got some parts wrong, I apologize. I'm not the... I didn't try to investigate too heavily into the situation. I just saw some videos on there. Figured I'd weigh in, give everybody a rough idea as to what is to be expected, and, you know, get a rough draft for those who aren't caught up to date on the Wizards of the Coast situation. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else, so if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. I'm willing to respond to any that I have, or any concerns you may have. I'll try to explain everything to the best of my ability, but again, I should reiterate that I am not a lawyer. I am nobody who has explored in depth in this situation. I just know what I've seen. And the third is that there are many other videos that detail what's going on. So if you're curious about the specifics, you can take from my video and you can search up the specifics on YouTube. It's all there, so I'm sure you'll find something. But I digress. I hope you guys are having a good day, and I hope you guys are going to, you know, I hope you guys appreciate this little bit that I did. But I digress. Take care, everyone, and have a good day.